Morning, everyone. Trust you are well. Today's learning is dedicated in memory of Avram ben Baruch Garcia, Tzvi ben Pinchas HaKohen Kendall, Esther Bas Eliezer Strang, Menachem ben Baruch, as well as those that we are learning for throughout the year. Ami Basari, Paul Kazimi, Yirmiyahu Chia ben Moshe Eliezer, Shlomo Chia ben Moshe Eliezer, Ben Zion ben Yitzchak, Ari ben Shimon, Leah Bas Vaivo, Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Katna, Menashe ben Tzvi Zalman, Rali Abbas, Avram Pinchas. Wish all of them and their families long life. So I want to share with you a brief idea relating to this season, this time of year that we are in. So we know that we're in the 9 days. The 9 days is a period in which we find the Jewish people mourning over the destruction of the two temples and all the other tragedies that have befallen our nation. Good morning, everyone. So we find in relation to the destruction of the first temple that there is the Eicha, which is the Megillah that we recite on Tisha B'Av, says that on this night the Jewish people cried, and the Medrash says as follows: it says that the Jewish people cried at night, and Jeremiah, the prophet of the Jewish people, cried by day. Says the Medrash, the Jewish people cried at night. That was when they were able to muster tears for the destruction. And therefore, they came to an arrangement with Jeremiah that he should cry and mourn by day, because it was the Jewish people couldn't do so during the day and night. And the question is obvious. It's, why? They're to come to an arrangement. You've just suffered a loss. Imagine you've suffered a personal loss. You wouldn't say, I'm only going to mourn at this time period. I'm not going to mourn during the morning. I'm only going to mourn during the evening. That doesn't work. And in fact, when I do find that we have people that have shivers and they say, we're only going to do it then because I've got another arrangement, it's very strange. It's very, very uncomfortable. So what's the answer to this? Sorry, Estelle was asking a question. My question usual has yes, it started. Yes, it has started. So the answer to this, it comes from, I think it's Rabbi Kiva Sofer. Rabbi Kiva Sofer says as follows, friends. He says that night and day were not meant to be literal, in other words, time periods, but it was meant to be a mindset. In other words, they symbolize different periods in a person and in the Jewish nation's lives. Lila, darkness, he said, represents the times of darkness, times where we find ourselves groping, unable to find our way. We're dealing with hardships and financial pressures, and we're suffering from illnesses and all the other things and tragedies and persecution and oppression that we've suffered as a nation and as individuals. During those periods, we were able and willing to mourn. It was palpable, the loss. By yom, by day, that's those periods in our history and in our lives where we feel quite comfortable, where we feel tranquility, we feel affluent, we feel confident and successful. In those periods of brightness in our lives, the sky's blue, the birds are chirping, everything's going well, then we don't feel a loss. We don't feel we're missing anything. And therefore the Jewish people said, we feel the loss at times like this when the temple's been destroyed. But when things were going well, when things are great for us, we've never had it so good, then we don't feel we're going to be able to mourn. And therefore they came to this arrangement with Jeremiah. But obviously, the idea and the challenge is for us to feel that not just when the chips are down, when we're in flux and tumultuous times, do we feel that, wow, something's wrong, It shouldn't take, a building to collapse in Miami, missiles to fly over in Israel, COVID and a pandemic, for us to feel that, without the temple, we're living in exile, suffering anti-Semitism, going through all the hardships and the inequalities and injustices. We should be able to recognize every single day that there is something missing. We know anyone who mourns will eventually merit to see the Jerusalem and the temple being rebuilt. And we find by the rivers of Babylon, we're all familiar with it, where we sat down, there we wept. Unusual phrase, friends, there we wept, right? What does it mean that there we wept? So the commentaries say, there we wept. When we were on the other side, when we were in Babylon already, we'd been exiled, then already we'd established ourselves. We were out of the woods, as it were. It wasn't so bad. There we were prepared, even then, even after the oppression, even after the darkness, at times of day, then we were still willing to mourn and to recognize the loss of the divine presence in our midst and the fact that the world isn't what it should be, and have that yearning and striving to change things for the better. That's the message, friends, in short, for us this morning. But Ezras Hashem, please God, we should be able to miss, to yearn, to recognize, looking around the world, things certainly aren't the way they should be. And please God, in this way, we will be able to see and to merit the rebuilding of the temple and the end of the exile. Continue now with Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord all the length of my days. Memorial prayer. Adon Olamim Zacho Es Nishmais. Avram ben Baruch Garcia, Tzvi ben Pinchas HaKohen Kendall, Esther Bas Eliezer Strang, Menachem ben Baruch, Ami Bas Aryeh, Paul Casimir, Yirmiyahu Chia ben Moshe Eliezer, Shlomo Chia ben Moshe Eliezer, Ben Zion ben Yisrael, Aryeh ben Shimon, Leah Bas Faiva, Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Katna, Moshe Nashner ben Tzvi Zalman, Ralia Bas Avram Pinchas, Shalchu li olamam manabal rachamim, Tazriim b'seisek anavech li olamim, v'tishvos l'chayim zishvosam, v'anucha mishkosam b'shalom, and amar amen. Long life wishes to all. Lastly, Refuah Shleima prayer. Misha berach Avsein Ram Zov Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo Yivarech Pesachayim Bavu Shanu Mispalim Bavu Ram B'Zchaz HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachmim Aleichem Manachum Alafosam V'Yishlach Lem Refuah Shemin Shemaim L'Chol V'Em Basar Shachizah Refuah Nefesh Refuah Saguf #Bagazmak Ribben Amar Amen. We live in terribly challenging times. Yesterday afternoon, we were watching in my house the Levaya, the funeral of a relatively young man who was killed, perished in the tragedy in Miami when the building collapsed. He was buried in Israel. And, we don't need to look far to see that certainly this world is not the way it should be. Things aren't the way they should be. But the only way they're going to change is not by us just sitting and tutting. It's by us being able to step forward and to make necessary changes in our lives. And please God, then that will have a ripple effect throughout the community, the society, and the world that we live. Wishing you all well. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Keep